part of the stage with the sock. As you can see that I did a 1x1 rib for the cuff. That is the length above my ankle to the length that I want on my leg. Okay, so you decide what length you want at that part, and then you can start creating your heel. Now with the heel, we have a 24 peg loom. The heel is created with half of the peg, so 24 divided by 2 is 12. So we're going to use 12 of the pegs to create a heel. Invest in some stitch markers. I'm going to start with my first peg. I'm going to clip it because I'm going to mark the first peg of the heel. Okay, there we go. And then we're going to count to 12. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So on the 12th peg, we're going to mark it again with our marker. We're going to be working the heel just with these 12 pegs, and the rest we'll deal with when we finish the heel itself. Okay, so we're going to be using the knitting stitch, and what we do is we knit all the way to the 12th peg. Okay, so we're at number 12 right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to, it's called a wrap and turn. We're actually not going to knit. We're going to wrap and turn it. So we're going to lift up the stitch. Okay. We're going to take the yarn that we have in our hand, and we're just going to tuck it in behind the peg. Like so, and we're going to leave it hanging in the front. So you're going to tuck it in behind and let it hang in the front. And then we're going to place the peg that we have on our hook back onto, sorry, the stitch that we have on our hook back onto the peg. Okay, we're not going to knit this at all. We're just going to carry the yarn from the front, and we're just going to gently place it in front of the 12th peg. And we're not going to do anything with it. We're just going to leave it as so. The reason why this is done is if you look at a sock, and if you ever knitted before, you get holes on the diagonal part of the heel. This acts as a filler to fill those holes that is created when you're joining the heel with the leg part of your sock. That is the reason why this is doubled. Okay, that's why we wrap and turn. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave peg number 12, and we're going to move on to the rest. We're going to knit all the way back to peg number 1. So we're going to knit back. So we're hitting peg number 2. We're working our way back to peg number 1. Peg number 1, we're going to do the same thing that we did to peg number 12. We're going to lift up the stitch, take it off the peg. We're going to take the yarn, the working yarn, we're going to gently place it behind the peg, and then let it lay in the front. We're going to put the stitch back onto the peg, like so. Okay, and we're going to carry the yarn over to the front, and we're going to knit peg number 2, leaving peg number 1 as is. And again, this acts as a filler so we don't get any holes on the side of our heel. So we're going to knit peg number 2, we're going to leave number 1 as so. And we're going to knit back all the way back to the other side. we're at number 10 peg. Number 11, we're going to do the same thing that we did with number 12. So we're not going to knit number 11, but what we're going to do is we're going to lift off the stitch like so. Take our working yarn, take our working yarn. I'm just going to carry it over to the back like so and into the front and let it hang. And carry the stitch that's on your hook and place it back onto the peg. We're going to pull on it a little bit like that. We're going to move it over in the front like so. Then we're going to leave peg number 11 alone. And we're going to knit peg 10. So basically what you're doing is creating 2 loops on the end pegs here. We're going to do that for the next 4 pegs. So we're going to go straight down to the end, to the beginning. We're going to omit, so we're at peg number 2. We're going to leave peg 1 where our marker is. We're going to do the same thing to peg 2 that we did to peg number 1. So we're going to lift up the stitch, take it off, take your working yarn, kick it in the back, peg number 2, and let your yarn rest in the front. We're going to place the stitch back on peg number 2. We're going to carry the working yarn forward and we're going to leave peg number 2 alone and carry on knitting from peg 3. Okay. So now we knit peg number 9. We have peg number 10, which is beside peg number 11. So we're going to do the same thing that we did to peg 12 and 11 to number 10. So we're going to lift the stitch off the peg, grab your working yarn, and let it drop in the front here. And then place your stitch back on the peg. And then you're going to take your working yarn, kick it in the front, and then continue. We're going to leave peg 10 dormant, and we're going to start knitting on peg number 9. All the way back to the front. We're going to knit to peg 4. Knit peg 4, peg number 3. We're going to do what we did to 1 and 2. We're going to lift up the stitch. Okay, pull it off. Kick the working yarn to the back of the peg and drop it in the front. Get your yarn that's on the hook, place it back onto the peg. Kick the working yarn forward, leave peg number 3 dormant as we did to number 1 and 2, and start knitting on peg number 4. So we knit peg number 8 to peg number 8. We're going to get peg number 9. We're going to do the same thing that we did to 12, 11, and 10. We're going to lift off the peg, the stitch off the peg, like so. Take your working yarn, kick it to the back of peg number 9, like so, and just let it hang. Place the stitch back onto peg. We're just going to kick the working yarn forward, ignore peg number 9, and we're going to start knitting from peg number 8. Okay, so now we knit to peg number 5. We're at peg number 4. We're going to do the same thing that we did to 1, 2, and 3. We're going to lift the stitch off the peg, kick the working yarn to the back, as you can see, kicking it to the back, and I'm letting it hang. I'm going to take this stitch and place it back onto the peg. We're going to wrap and turn again. We're going to ignore number 4. We're going to go straight. Actually, we're not going to go to number 12. We're going to go to number 9. We're going to knit off number 9, back to number 4. Like so. Peg number 4, we're going to knit off the 2 loops. Like so. There we go. Carry the yarn to the front. Put the peg back. I'm going to knit back to peg number 10.